It began on a rain-slick stretch of highway in November 2003, the kind of night that feels like it's holding its breath. 36-year-old Richard Lane, a delivery driver from Colorado, was on his way home from an overnight drop in Utah. His route was familiar, the kind of drive you can do half asleep, guided by muscle memory and caffeine. The road cut through an endless desert plain, no towns for miles, no lights except the glow of his dashboard. Around 2:13 a.m., his radio crackled. Then silence. Not static, just gone. Even the hum of his tires seemed to vanish. He leaned forward, frowning, gripping the wheel tighter. The world outside his windshield felt thinner. The air itself heavy, like driving through invisible water. And that's when he saw it, a light. Not from another car, but a blinding white pillar ahead, stretching from the ground into the clouds like a vertical sunrise. Richard blinked hard, thinking it was lightning, but the light didn't fade. It shimmered, pulsating, rhythmic, alive. As he drew closer, the highway lines beneath his truck seemed to distort, bending toward the light like magnetized ink. His GPS flickered wildly, coordinates changing faster than he could read them. The digital clock froze at 2:14 a.m. His truck engine sputtered, then roared back. Against all sense, he drove straight into the light. The moment he crossed the threshold, every sound vanished. No engine. No rain. No heartbeat. Only a deep, endless hum that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Outside, the desert was gone. The stars were brighter, thousands of them, but arranged in patterns he'd never seen. His headlights illuminated a road that didn't exist on any map, black glass stretching into infinity, reflecting his truck like a mirror. And behind him, nothing. Just black void, swallowing the world he came from. For what felt like hours, he drove. No signs, no exits, not even the comfort of a mile marker. Just endless highway and that impossible sky, swirling violet clouds with streaks of silver lightning that made no sound. His radio flickered to life once, playing a faint recording of a woman humming, not a song he knew, but strangely familiar, like something from a dream he couldn't place. The hum seemed to sync with the vibrations of the truck, as though the entire dimension breathed with him. He tried calling for help, but his phone displayed no signal, no time, no battery percentage, just a black screen with faint white static. When exhaustion finally took over, he slowed and pulled onto the shoulder, killing the engine. The silence was unbearable. He opened his door, stepped out, and realized there was no sound at all. Not wind. Not gravel. Just his own heartbeat echoing in the void. Then came the figure. At first, he thought it was a mirage, someone standing in the middle of the glassy road about 100 yards ahead. A silhouette, motionless, facing him. Richard called out, but no echo came back. As he stepped closer, the figure turned. It was him. Same clothes, same face, same expression, but the eyes were hollow, glowing faintly white. "You're not supposed to be here," the other Richard said. His voice was flat, mechanical, like an audio recording played through an empty hall. "Go back before it closes." Panic surged. Richard stumbled backward toward his truck, fumbling for the door handle. When he looked up again, the figure was gone, replaced by dozens more, faint reflections of himself walking along the road, all moving in slow, synchronized steps toward the horizon. Then, one by one, they began to dissolve, each leaving behind a faint trail of silver mist. Richard slammed the truck into gear and sped forward, desperate to find an exit, any exit. The road stretched endlessly, but the light he'd entered through was gone. His headlights flickered, then died completely. Only the glow from that alien sky illuminated his path. As he drove, the hum returned, louder, vibrating through the steering wheel, pulsing with every heartbeat. Then, ahead, a faint sign appeared, hovering above the road. It read, "Exit 0, return." He pressed the gas harder, watching as the road began to ripple like liquid beneath his tires. The air felt electric. He crossed the sign, and everything went white again. The next thing he knew, his truck was parked on a dirt road just outside Delta, Utah. His watch read 4:52 a.m. But when he checked his trip meter, it still read the same mileage as it had 3 hours before. According to the world, he never moved an inch. When Richard stepped out of the truck, the air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. The desert around him was silent, yet his ears rang like after an explosion. He turned on his flashlight and noticed something off. The dirt beneath his boots shimmered faintly, like crushed glass reflecting moonlight. Only, there was no moon. The sky was cloudless and black, darker than ink, except for a single flicker on the horizon. He looked back at his truck. The hood was coated in fine white dust, and every metal surface seemed magnetized. His compass spun uncontrollably. When he tried to start the engine, it roared to life instantly, though the keys weren't even in the ignition. For a moment, the radio switched on by itself, not static, but whispering. His own voice, recorded earlier that night, repeating a single sentence. "You made it through." Then it went silent again. That was the moment Richard realized, whatever he drove through wasn't just a storm or illusion. It was a doorway. The next morning, Richard stumbled into a diner on the outskirts of town, dazed, shivering, and covered in a fine white residue. The waitress remembered him clearly. He looked like a man who hadn't seen daylight in years. When he asked what day it was, she told him it was November 23rd. But Richard had entered the light on November 17th, 6 days earlier. His fuel gauge showed barely a gallon used. His phone showed 0 missed calls, though his wife later said she'd been calling him for nearly a week. Even stranger, when police checked the truck's GPS history, the signal showed him circling a 3-mile patch of highway for 142 continuous hours, at impossible speeds, looping endlessly like he was driving in a closed circuit that didn't exist. The sheriff assumed a malfunction. Richard didn't argue. He couldn't tell anyone what he'd actually seen. Who would believe him? He just kept whispering to himself, "I came back." Over the next few days, things got worse. The white dust covering his truck wouldn't wash off. Water seemed to evaporate instantly on contact. His hands, after touching it, began to feel numb, as if tiny vibrations ran under his skin. When he tried to sleep, he'd hear low frequencies, a deep thrumming like distant engines under the ground. He started having flashes of that place, violet skies, infinite roads, his other self standing motionless in the glow. Sometimes he'd see that same figure reflected faintly in mirrors or store windows, always a few paces behind him, always fading if he turned. His wife begged him to see a doctor. But when Richard went in for a checkup, every monitor in the room, the ECG, the blood pressure machine, spiked and malfunctioned the moment he sat down. The doctor said his heartbeat was off pattern, like 2 rhythms beating at once. He left the clinic without saying a word. On the 5th night after his return, Richard began documenting everything. He recorded audio tapes describing what he saw, labeling them testimony for whoever finds this. In one tape, his voice trembles as he says, "The road didn't end. It folded. Like time wasn't a line but a loop. I think I was somewhere in between." He described an unbearable smell, ozone mixed with burnt metal, that lingered inside his truck. He also mentioned finding something wedged under his seat, a coin, thin and black like obsidian, etched with geometric lines that pulsed faintly when held under light. He tried to photograph it, but the image came out blank, the coin invisible. That same night, he claimed his truck's engine started by itself at exactly 2:14 a.m., the same time everything froze during the drive. When he ran outside, the driver's seatbelt was buckled, as if someone, or something, invisible was sitting inside, waiting to leave again. Richard's mental state began unraveling. His friends said he spoke about echoes of himself, versions trapped somewhere beyond reach. He'd drive out to the same stretch of highway every night, searching for the light, desperate to prove it was real. One night, his wife followed him secretly. She watched as he parked, stepped out, and stared at the horizon for almost an hour, whispering to himself. Then she saw it too, a faint shimmer, like heat haze, forming in the darkness ahead. The ground vibrated, the air bent, and the hum returned. Terrified, she called out his name. Richard turned toward her and smiled, but it wasn't the same smile. His eyes glowed faintly white. The hum grew louder until she couldn't hear her own screams. When she opened her eyes, he was gone, the truck door still open, engine running. Only his footprints remained, ending abruptly in the middle of the road. Richard Lane was never seen again. For weeks after Richard's disappearance, local police treated it as a runaway case. But the investigation quickly took a strange turn. The sheriff's department found his truck abandoned exactly where his wife had said, the engine still idling, headlights pointing into the darkness, the radio humming faintly. On the passenger seat was a small notebook, its pages filled with symbols and coordinates written in a frantic, looping hand. The coordinates didn't lead anywhere on a map. When investigators tried to enter them into GPS systems, the devices froze. One officer reported feeling a pressure in his ears, like standing too close to a jet engine. The notebook itself was later confiscated by an unnamed federal agency, and all local records were sealed. What remained were the testimonies, from truckers who swore they saw Richard's pickup reappear on the highway weeks later, headlights glowing brighter than any normal beam, before vanishing again into thin air. A few months later, strange reports started coming in from other drivers along Highway 285. They described light storms that appeared out of nowhere, vertical pillars of blinding white, accompanied by silence so complete it made their own thoughts echo. CB radios would go dead, and compasses spun wildly. Some swore they saw a man standing on the side of the road during those events, pale, motionless, and illuminated from within, like light was leaking out of his skin. When police arrived, there'd be nothing there but scorched tire marks circling the asphalt, forming perfect concentric rings. The incidents were written off as optical illusions or atmospheric anomalies, but one state trooper quit after claiming that when he approached one of those light pillars, he heard someone whisper his name, in his own voice. He said it sounded like a plea for help. That was the last time anyone patrolled that stretch alone at night. Meanwhile, Richard's wife, Ellen, was haunted by dreams. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, the sound of humming still vibrating in her chest. In one dream, she was driving endlessly down a road that folded into itself like a Mobius strip, the same landmarks repeating, the same shadow standing in her headlights. Sometimes she'd wake up to find the TV turned on by itself, showing static shaped like distant headlights. One night, while cleaning Richard's study, she found a cassette labeled, "Do not play." Of course, she played it. The recording was faint, muffled, but his voice was clear. "If you hear this, I didn't make it back. But I think I'm still driving. I see things, lights that move like thought, roads that breathe. Don't look for me. I think I found another version of home." The tape ended with the same low hum, followed by a sound like tires grinding against concrete from 1,000 miles away. Ellen tried to share the tape online, but every upload corrupted after a few seconds, turning into static. Forums picked up fragments of the story, a trucker lost between worlds, a desert road that eats time, and conspiracy threads exploded. Some claimed it was a secret military experiment in quantum transport gone wrong. Others believed Richard stumbled into a dimensional slip zone, similar to reports from the Skinwalker Ranch region. A few even suggested he drove through a naturally occurring Einstein-Rosen bridge, a wormhole. But the strangest twist came from an anonymous Reddit user who uploaded dashcam footage allegedly showing a bright flash on that same highway, timestamped 2:14 a.m., the exact minute Richard disappeared. The uploader claimed he wasn't driving when it happened. His car just started moving. Authorities dismissed it as a hoax, but the metadata matched. The file originated within 20 miles of the real location. The uploader deleted his account the next day. By 2020, the legend of Richard Lane had become an internet phenomenon. Documentaries, Reddit AMAs, YouTube breakdowns, even supposed coordinates to the place. Paranormal researchers flocked to the area, reporting strange electromagnetic readings, distorted timestamps on cameras, and even nausea near the site. The government fenced off a 3-mile radius, citing unstable ground. But satellite imagery showed something else, a perfect circular distortion, like a mirage carved into the desert itself. Locals called it the mirror field, because at dusk, if you stood near the fence, you could sometimes see cars driving inside, even though there were none. Ellen stopped visiting after one evening when she heard her husband's voice calling faintly from inside the static, whispering, "Keep driving." His voice was calm, familiar. She turned back and never returned. But every year, on November 17th, a lone pickup truck appears briefly on radar, moving faster than any human could drive, before vanishing into nothing. 2 years after the last reported sighting, a team of graduate physics students from Colorado State University conducted an unsanctioned field experiment near the restricted zone. Using portable magnetometers and drone LiDAR, they recorded a faint electromagnetic echo that pulsed every 11 minutes, as if something massive, yet intangible, was rhythmically shifting in space. The signal wasn't random. It followed a pattern resembling Morse code, but when decoded, it translated to lane. The team thought it was interference, or a prank, until one student's phone picked up a Bluetooth signal with the device name, Richard's Ford F-150. It was impossible. The truck had been impounded and destroyed years ago. As they moved closer to the signal's source, the air shimmered, and the drone camera captured a brief frame of a man behind a windshield, mouth open mid-scream, frozen in motion as if time itself had paused. Then the drone fell from the sky, its circuits melted from within. The footage was confiscated days later, along with every piece of their equipment. None of the students returned to that desert again. When fragments of that footage leaked on an obscure paranormal forum months later, people noticed something chilling. Behind the frozen truck in the distance were faint reflections, other vehicles, hundreds of them, overlapping each other like transparent layers of reality. Some dated back to the 1960s, others looked futuristic, unfamiliar. It was as if all the lost travelers, all those who ever vanished on lonely highways, were stuck in a corridor between dimensions, looping endlessly through time. Investigators dubbed it the interstice. Physicists had another term, a trapped tachyon field, where matter is locked in sublight stasis. But none of the explanations mattered to those who listened closely to the leaked audio. Beneath the hum of interference, they swore they could hear dozens of voices whispering the same words. "Keep driving. Don't stop." It wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. Ellen never fully recovered from the loss. Yet one evening, unable to sleep, she returned to the place, the restricted fence under a violet sky, the hum of cicadas blending with static. She stood alone, flashlight trembling, and whispered her husband's name. For a long moment, nothing. Then the air shifted, a pressure wave rolled through her chest, and the flashlight flickered. In the distance, the faint outline of a truck appeared, headlights cutting through the haze. She felt warmth on her face, the familiar scent of diesel. The hum grew louder, resolving into something almost human, like breathing. Then a voice, fractured and echoing from somewhere inside the light. "You shouldn't have come." The lights flared, then vanished, leaving only silence and the smell of ozone. When the sun rose, Ellen's car was still there, door open, engine running. Her footprints stopped at the fence. No one ever found her again. Only her phone remained still recording. The last 2 minutes were nothing but a low rhythmic pulse, beating like a heart. Years later, a declassified document surfaced under FOIA request. Project Echo Road. The report described an unstable geophysical anomaly, capable of temporal displacement. It mentioned multiple disappearances correlated with radio interference spikes and gravitational distortions. The final paragraph referenced Subject R. Lane, potential phase drift survivor. The file ended abruptly with a redacted section labeled Containment Successful. The coordinates were blurred, but researchers matched the censored digits to a barren patch of desert near the same stretch of highway. Locals say that on clear nights, when the wind dies and the air tastes metallic, you can still see headlights appear from nowhere, drifting soundlessly along the horizon, heading toward a place that no longer exists. Truckers call it the loop. They say if you flash your lights twice, you'll see a second pair respond, yours from another time. Today, the story of Richard Lane lives online as digital folklore. Some believe he's alive, eternally driving between worlds. Others think he merged with the anomaly itself, a human ghost engine, caught between dimensions. Every few months, a new video surfaces claiming to capture him, dashcam footage showing a pickup accelerating through a blinding white gate, or audio recordings of a radio broadcast that no one else can tune into. Most are hoaxes, of course. But one file, found on an old police laptop, still unnerves anyone who hears it. The recording begins with static, then Richard's voice, distorted, distant, but unmistakable. If you hear this, I didn't make it back. But I think I found the road we all take eventually. Then silence. The hum returns, rising slowly into a chorus of engine roars, hundreds of them, fading into eternity. No one knows if Richard ever escaped. But if you're ever driving late through the desert, and your radio starts humming without signal, don't adjust the dial. Just keep driving.